For decades, one strange and silent man managed to make the entire world laugh without saying almost anything at all. The character of Mr. Bean became one of the most recognizable comedy figures ever created. With his thin brown suit, awkward expressions, and completely unpredictable behavior, he entertained millions of people across different cultures, languages, and generations. Yet behind that iconic character stood the quiet and brilliant actor Rowan Atkinson, a man whose real life was far more complex than the character audiences saw on screen. Before we continue, take 1 second to like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you don't miss more real stories like this. For many viewers, Mr. Bean seemed effortless. His comedy looked natural, almost accidental, as if chaos simply followed him everywhere he went. But the truth behind the scenes was very different. While audiences saw a man performing hilarious physical comedy, Rowan Atkinson was quietly carrying the weight of fame, criticism, personal struggles, and a secret that people had been speculating about for decades. For years, fans wondered about one particular mystery surrounding the character. It was a rumor that never seemed to disappear. Some people dismissed it as a joke, while others believed it might actually be true. For more than 3 decades, the actor avoided directly answering the question. But eventually, after 31 years of speculation, Rowan Atkinson finally addressed the rumor that had followed Mr. Bean since the very beginning. To understand the story, it helps to go back to the beginning of Rowan Atkinson's life. Rowan Sebastian Atkinson was born on January 6, 1955, in the small town of Consett in County Durham in northern England. He grew up in a quiet farming family with 3 older brothers. His father, Eric Atkinson, was both a farmer and a businessman, while his mother, Ella, managed the household and raised the children. Nothing about Rowan's early life suggested that he would someday become one of the most famous comedians in the world. However, Rowan faced a challenge that would shape his entire future. From a very young age, he struggled with a stutter. Speaking was not easy for him. Words sometimes refused to come out smoothly, and forming complete sentences could feel like climbing a steep hill. In school, this made him shy and cautious during conversations. At a time when speech difficulties were not well understood, children with stutters were often teased or misunderstood. For many people, this kind of challenge could have crushed their confidence completely, but for Rowan Atkinson, it pushed him toward a different way of communicating. Instead of relying on words, he discovered the power of physical expression. A look, a gesture, or a movement could sometimes say more than an entire sentence. This realization would later become the foundation of one of the most famous comedy characters in television history. Despite his speech difficulties, Rowan was an intelligent and academically gifted student. He attended Durham Chorister School and later continued his studies at St. Bees School in Cumbria. His interests leaned heavily toward logic, science, and engineering, rather than performing arts. When it came time for university, Rowan chose to study electrical and electronic engineering at Newcastle University. He completed his degree successfully and then moved on to pursue a master's degree at the Queen's College in Oxford. It was during his time at Oxford that something unexpected happened. Although engineering was his main focus, Rowan joined the Oxford University Dramatic Society and the Experimental Theatre Club. At first, it was simply a way to meet new people and try something outside of his academic routine. But very quickly, he discovered that performing comedy gave him a unique sense of freedom. Because of his stutter, traditional joke-telling was difficult. Timing a punchline with speech required a smooth rhythm of words, something that did not always come easily to him. However, physical comedy did not depend on words at all. Through exaggerated facial expressions, awkward movements, and carefully timed physical reactions, Rowan found a way to make people laugh without speaking much. This discovery changed everything. During his time at Oxford, Rowan also met 2 individuals who would play an important role in shaping his future career. One was Richard Curtis, a talented writer who would later create many famous British comedies. The other was Howard Goodall, a gifted composer who understood how music and timing could enhance comedic moments. Together, they began developing sketches that blended clever writing with Rowan's unusual style of performance. After graduating from Oxford, Rowan decided to pursue comedy professionally. In the late 1970s, he began appearing on radio programs and small television shows. His big breakthrough came when he joined the cast of Not the 9 O'Clock News, a satirical sketch show that aired in 1979. The show quickly became extremely popular in Britain. It introduced audiences to Rowan Atkinson's unique style of humor and helped launch his career in television. His characters often portrayed socially awkward individuals who struggled with normal human interactions. Soon after, Rowan achieved even more success with another television series called Blackadder. Unlike the silent comedy he would later become famous for, Blackadder relied heavily on clever dialogue, sarcasm, and sharp wit. The series proved that Rowan Atkinson was not just a physical comedian, he was also a brilliant actor, capable of delivering complex lines and sophisticated humor. But despite these achievements, Rowan and Richard Curtis had an idea for a completely different kind of character. They wanted to create someone who barely spoke at all, a character who communicated through actions instead of words, much like the silent film comedians of the early 20th century. Rowan admired legends like Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keegan, who had mastered the art of storytelling without dialogue. Inspired by their work, he began developing a new character built almost entirely around physical comedy. At first, the character didn't even have a name. In early drafts, he was simply described as a man. Eventually, when the creators needed a title for the television show, someone suggested the name Mr. Bean. It was simple, meaningless, and strangely memorable. That name would soon become famous around the world. When Mr. Bean first appeared on television in 1990, audiences immediately fell in love with the bizarre man in the brown suit. He drove a small green Mini Cooper, carried around his beloved teddy bear, and constantly found himself in ridiculous situations. What made the character unique was his silence. Mr. Bean rarely spoke. Instead, he communicated through facial expressions, grunts, and exaggerated body language. Because there was almost no dialogue, the show could easily cross language barriers. Viewers in different countries didn't need subtitles or translations to understand what was happening. As a result, Mr. Bean quickly became a global phenomenon. The series was eventually broadcast in more than 190 countries. It spawned animated shows, feature films, and even a memorable appearance during the opening ceremony of the 2012 Summer Olympic opening ceremony in London. However, while the character brought laughter to millions of people, Rowan Atkinson's personal relationship with Mr. Bean was far more complicated than most fans realized. Behind the scenes, the success of the character created unexpected challenges. The world loved Mr. Bean so much that many people began to see Rowan Atkinson only as that character. No matter what other roles he played, audiences often associated him with the silent man in the brown suit. This type of fame created frustration for the actor. While he appreciated the success of the character, he also knew he was capable of much more as a performer. But the pressures of fame were only the beginning of the story, because while the world continued laughing at Mr. Bean's strange adventures, Rowan Atkinson was quietly dealing with personal struggles, professional exhaustion, and a growing rumor that refused to disappear. And eventually, that rumor would lead to one of the most surprising confirmations in television history. As the years passed, the success of Mr. Bean continued to grow far beyond what anyone had originally imagined. What began as a small British comedy show slowly turned into one of the most globally recognized television characters in entertainment history. From Europe to Asia, from Africa to South America, audiences who spoke completely different languages were laughing at the same silent character. For Rowan Atkinson, however, this worldwide success came with a hidden cost. Inside Britain, he was respected for several different roles. His performances in Blackadder had already proven his ability to deliver intelligent and sharp dialogue-based comedy. His work on Not the 9 O'Clock News had shown his talent for satire and social commentary. These projects demonstrated that he was not simply a physical comedian, but a versatile performer. Yet, outside Britain, most international audiences knew him only as Mr. Bean. Wherever Rowan Atkinson traveled, people would greet him not by his real name, but by the character he created. In restaurants, airports, hotels, and public places, strangers would point at him and shout, "Mr. Bean!" Many fans expected him to behave exactly like the character in real life. At first, the attention felt amusing, but over time, it became exhausting. Film producers and casting directors often approached him with scripts that were simply variations of the same silent character. They wanted more physical comedy, more clumsy accidents, and more exaggerated facial expressions. While those elements had made Mr. Bean famous, they were not the only kind of acting Rowan Atkinson wanted to explore. Privately, he admitted in several interviews that playing Mr. Bean was far more stressful than people realized. The character required an incredible level of precision. Every gesture, every movement, and every facial expression had to be perfectly timed. Unlike traditional comedy, there were no lines of dialogue to rely on. If a joke failed physically, there was nothing else to save the scene. This meant filming often involved repeating the same action over and over again until the timing felt absolutely perfect. Days on set could be long and physically demanding. The comedy that looked effortless on screen was actually the result of intense concentration and physical strain. Rowan Atkinson once explained that portraying Mr. Bean required complete focus from the moment filming began until it ended. There was no room for relaxation while performing the character. As he grew older, the physical demands became even more difficult. By the time he reached his 60s, Atkinson began hinting that the character might eventually retire from live-action appearances. While the animated version of the show could continue, the physical performance required for the original character was becoming harder to maintain. But professional exhaustion was not the only challenge he faced. At the same time, his personal life was going through a painful transformation. For more than 2 decades, Rowan Atkinson had been married to Sunetra Sastry, a makeup artist he met during the production of Blackadder in the 1980s. Their relationship developed quietly, far away from the spotlight. In 1990, the same year Mr. Bean debuted on television, the couple married and began building a private family life together. They had 2 children, Benjamin Atkinson and Lily Sastry, and for many years their marriage appeared stable from the outside. Sunetra preferred to stay away from public attention. While Rowan's career kept him in the media, she focused on raising their children and maintaining a quiet life away from cameras and headlines. But fame has a way of creating distance. As Mr. Bean's global popularity expanded, Rowan Atkinson's schedule became increasingly demanding. Film projects, interviews, travel, and promotional appearances meant he was often away from home for long periods of time. Gradually, that distance began to affect the relationship. By the early 2010s, signs of strain were beginning to appear. The couple was rarely seen together in public, and Rowan spoke less frequently about his family life in interviews. Then, in 2014, the situation became public. News reports revealed that Atkinson had started a relationship with actress Louise Ford, whom he had met while working on a stage production. The revelation shocked many people. After 24 years of marriage, Rowan Atkinson and Sunetra Sastry separated, and their divorce was finalized in 2015. For their daughter Lily, the situation was particularly painful. She later spoke about feeling lost and emotionally overwhelmed during the years following their parents' separation. Her brother Benjamin chose a very different path, joining the British Army and largely staying away from the public spotlight. Meanwhile, Rowan Atkinson continued his relationship with Louise Ford. In 2017, the couple welcomed a daughter together, marking a new chapter in his personal life. Although life moved forward, the emotional impact of the divorce was significant. Friends close to Atkinson later described him as more quiet and reflective in the years that followed. Yet, even as he dealt with these personal challenges, another kind of controversy was beginning to emerge. In recent years, Rowan Atkinson stepped into public debates that surprised many of his fans. Known for decades as a quiet comedian, he suddenly found himself discussing serious topics such as technology, environmental policy, and free speech. One of the most widely discussed moments came when he criticized the rapid push toward electric vehicles. Drawing on his background in electrical engineering, he argued that the environmental impact of manufacturing electric cars, especially their batteries, was often overlooked. His comments sparked intense debate. Some experts strongly disagreed with his conclusions, while others appreciated that he was willing to question popular assumptions. At the same time, he also spoke publicly about cancel culture and the importance of protecting freedom of expression in comedy. His statements once again divided public opinion. Supporters praised his defense of artistic freedom, while critics argued that comedians must also consider the impact of their words. For many fans, these controversies revealed a side of Rowan Atkinson that was very different from the silent character they had grown up watching. But despite all the debates surrounding his opinions and personal life, one mystery still remained connected to the character that made him famous. For decades, viewers had noticed something unusual about Mr. Bean. The character behaved differently from ordinary people. He seemed confused by basic social customs, struggled to understand simple situations, and approached everyday objects with curiosity, almost like someone encountering them for the first time. Then there was the strange opening sequence of the show. At the beginning of every episode, Mr. Bean appeared to fall from the sky in a bright beam of light. A choir sang in Latin as he landed on the ground and looked around in confusion before beginning his day. For years, fans debated the meaning of this unusual introduction. Some viewers assumed it was simply a stylistic choice, meant to make the show feel unique. Others believed it suggested something more mysterious about the character's origin. Slowly, a strange theory began spreading among fans. What if Mr. Bean was actually not human? The idea sounded ridiculous at first, but the more people thought about it, the more details seemed to support it. His confusion about normal behavior, his limited speech, and the way he appeared to arrive from the sky all pointed towards the same possibility. According to the theory, Mr. Bean might actually be an alien trying to survive on Earth. For many years, the creators of the show avoided confirming or denying the idea. They allowed fans to continue speculating without giving a clear answer. Then, eventually, Rowan Atkinson addressed the theory himself. In interviews, he explained that the character was intentionally designed to feel slightly alien compared to ordinary humans. Mr. Bean was meant to appear like an outsider observing human society from a completely different perspective. The opening sequence, where he falls from the sky, was not just a random visual joke. It was meant to reinforce the idea that Mr. Bean didn't fully belong in the world around him. In other words, the character was always meant to feel like someone who had arrived from somewhere else. After more than 30 years of speculation, fans finally had their answer. Mr. Bean was not just an awkward man in a brown suit. He was designed as a mysterious outsider, a strange visitor trying to understand a world that made very little sense to him. Perhaps that's exactly why the character resonated with so many people. Everyone has moments when they feel confused by the rules of society, when everyday situations suddenly feel awkward or overwhelming. Through Mr. Bean's silent misadventures, audiences saw a reflection of those feelings in a funny and exaggerated form. In the end, the man who made the world laugh without words created something truly universal. And even after decades, the strange little character who fell from the sky continues to remind us that sometimes the simplest comedy can cross every language, culture, and generation.